take a moment to thank our sponsor, CatchMark Technologies. If you're looking for technical support, structured cabling, cybersecurity, or digital marketing, they're your go-to team. With tons of experience, they will guide you through all of your technical problems. Reach out to them at catchmarkit.com. All right, welcome to episode 9 of the Benchwarmers Perspective. Today, I'm here with Kris Maddox, Montague wrestling coach. How long have you been there at Montague now?
Oh, this is my 15th season overall. I started coaching football, but this is my 10th season as the wrestling coach.
Can I have you pull the mic close to you?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. So you started coaching football at Montague and then transitioned into wrestling. How did you get into wrestling? Have you always been into wrestling? How did that start?
Actually, I went to Manistee. I wrestled there, played football, ran track, and then I went to Olivet College for a year where I wrestled. Came back and was going to community college and needed a job, so I started reffing.
Yeah.
But always wanted to give back and to the sport and whatnot. It did a lot for me when I was in school. So I reffed for about 10 years. My job brought me down this way, moved down here, and I actually started coaching at Holton football.
Yeah.
I was there for about 3 or 4 days, and Mulder was the middle school football coach at the time. Gave me a phone call. I think it was 2009. And said, "Hey, you want to come coach?" I'm like, "Well, I'm kind of coaching now." He goes, "Well, it's a paid position." So I ended up going over to Montague in 2009 and coaching at the middle school, and did that for a long time. And I think a couple years in or so, he was moving up to the high school, or his position was changing, so needed a middle school wrestling coach assistant. So I did that for a year or two, and then I kind of still reffing at the time, and the position came open, and at the time it was Chad Coppas and Ken Diamond.
Yeah.
Called me and said, "Hey, would you apply and be interested?" And kind of one thing led to another.
Yeah. What's that been like? What's the journey been like?
Oh boy, it's up. It's got its ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's definitely fun, rewarding. There's times it's stressful. I got a lot of gray hair because of it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely challenging. I think that's the most rewarding part of it, is overcoming those challenges and obstacles, seeing the kids succeed, not just on the mat, but in life. And I think recently it's been really cool. A lot of the kids are coming back and saying they want to get into coaching. So it's
I've noticed that.
Yeah. It's really fun. It's definitely kind of warms your heart a little bit to realize you had an impact, that these other students and kids that are now in college want to come back and give back to what gave to them. Yeah.
So from Manistee, tell me a little bit about Manistee back then and your success then.
So my freshman year was the first year we had a varsity wrestling program. It was recreated. Our football coach at the time, Tim Pant, and he had a bunch of assistants. They were coincidentally all in corrections. And then he did it for a couple years to help the football program grow, keep his guys in the weight room and active in the winter. So the program got resurrected in 96. 1996 was their first full years of varsity sport. So it was a challenge. Definitely, know what I know now, I was definitely sheltered, didn't realize how big the sport was and how good people were and where you could go to get so much better. I had decent success, like my freshman year. I think I had maybe a 500 record. Sophomore year, I qualified for regionals, and then I lost to, I believe it was Chad Nowicki, who's actually from Whitehall, in the blood round of regionals.
Oof.
He had a mean fireman. So then my junior year and senior year, I qualified for state. I went 1 and 2 both years, so left that taste of hunger still in my blood. The Olivet wrestling coach, his son or son-in-law lived in Manistee at the time. So I got a phone call one day from him. One thing led to another. I ended up at Olivet for a year. Great experience. Wish I would have stayed through my 4 years and not been in such a hurry to get to the workforce. But I was there a year. Moved back to Manistee, helped coach football and wrestling for a year or two while I was going to community college, and then got in the workforce and got away from the sport a little bit. Circled back around to it. So
so something I've kind of curious about, how much has the sport changed? I mean, I would say, I don't know if wrestling's necessarily a combat sport, but in combat sports with the rise of MMA and UFC, I got to imagine wrestling's changed a little bit with that.
Oh, I think that's helped the sport tremendously.
Yeah.
Given I think a lot of the wrestlers were successful in MMA and UFC.
Yeah.
Especially in what we say like 2000s, early 2000s maybe when UFC really started taking off. A lot of people seen the success in jiu-jitsu and stuff like that was transitioning to UFC. So I think it kind of helped the sport a lot. Gives maybe wrestling that doesn't quite have the outlet or pastime that other sports like basketball.
At this moment, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Kris Wank, Century 21 First Class Realty. Looking to sell or purchase a new home? Or perhaps invest in a plot of land? Kris Wank with Century 21 First Class Realty is your go-to expert. As a leader in West Michigan real estate, Kris brings unparalleled knowledge and dedication to every transaction. Don't wait. Call Kris Wank today at 616-414-5420 and take the first step towards your real estate dreams. Century 21 First Class Realty, your trusted partner in West Michigan property.
Football, you can go pick up a game with your buddies or throw the ball around. It kind of gives them an outlet for after college. I mean, there's a lot of successful wrestlers. Jason Nolf's in the UFC right now, I believe. He was a Penn State wrestler. I was very successful at Penn State. So I think it gives them something else to do besides just the Olympic trials run and stuff like that.
Yeah. And those UFC matches are so fun to watch.
They're brutal.
Yeah, they're brutal too, but they're fun to watch. I know it's something that I wasn't big into in high school, but then I graduated and my cousin was pretty big into it. And so he's like, you got to come watch this. Yeah. And I was like, all right. So I watched it. And then now we watch every single fight night every single time it comes on.
Yeah, I did a lot in college, watched a lot of back then there was only 10 to 15 fighters. I mean, so you had like Matt Hughes and those guys that were like big at the time, and there wasn't all these names. Now it's hard to keep up, and you fight every month now roughly.
Yeah, basically every month.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a brutal sport, kind of like wrestling. 4 years of high school wrestling beats on your body. So I mean, the guys that are in the UFC for 5-6 years, it's amazing what they can accomplish and do because their body's holding up that long. Yeah.
How has high school wrestling changed from that?
I don't know that it's changed a lot. I think you do get some kids in the off season that do some like the judo and the not taekwondo, the grappling and the submission grappling a little bit in the summer. So I think it gives them a little bit something different to do. But I mean, the big difference obviously with those is you can be on your back and wrestle, or in wrestling you don't want to be on your back. So but it's getting their bodies moving, so I think it helps them too. You see a lot of successful businesses in Muskegon that are doing well with that stuff, and it's growing rapidly. It's a great exercise. So I think wrestling itself hasn't evolved too much from it, just because the rules are pretty standard. There's nothing you can really evolve over to it, I guess.
Yeah. So something that you guys, that I think Montague's been kind of a pioneer in, is the women's wrestling through the last 4 or 5 years, about roughly.
Yeah, roughly 5, 6, maybe.
How is that just? I mean, that's pretty much exploded in Michigan.
That's insane how big that's gotten. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say we were a pioneer. I would say we had some successful girls, which helped bring in more success to the program. Success breeds success, obviously. But I would say we were successful at promoting it and getting more girls out, so it kind of made us look like a pioneer, front runner. In the area, I would say, maybe we were a little bit of a pioneer, but now you got teams like Grand Haven with 13, 14 girls on their team. They're doing outstanding. Adam Cook's doing outstanding with their program over there. But shoot, I'm trying to remember, I was thinking on the way over here. So 5 years ago now would have been some of our first girls' years of wrestling. So Ava Pendel, who's a senior now, who just got her 100th win, which is amazing for her to do it. So her freshman year was the official first year of the MHSA tournament. Yeah. So since then, I mean, it's grown tremendously. Our first year of our tournament, we hosted, I think we had 80, if I remember right, 80 some girls. And I think this year we're up to 256. Jeez. So in 4 years, that's how much the tournament's grown. So watching it grow and these opportunities for these young ladies is tremendous. Yeah. How much is that new gym going to help you guys out? Oh, we've already been in there measuring. I think we could probably fit 6 mats if we did it 3 and 3. With the bleachers in, I'm guessing? One side of the bleachers in. Yeah. So, because the new gym hosts roughly double. So like I think once our gym right now holds about, I'm trying to remember, 400-ish.
Yeah, it's like
Something like that, 480 maybe.
480. Yeah, somewhere around there.
So one side of the bleachers in the new gym I think is like 700.
Yeah.
So we can keep in one side of the bleachers, and we can get
I found this on the web.
technology. So we can get probably 6 mats
Yeah.
in there, I think, if we really wanted to. But I think having the 4th mat's going to be huge, especially for tournament time, cutting the amount of time in the gym down.
Yeah.
Wrestling used to have 45 minutes between each matches. That's down to a half hour now. So it'll be tremendous for us.
And when you have 6 mats, like you're going through
Oh,
double the amount of matches at the same time.
Even just one mat is huge. You can take an hour off of a tournament time by having just one extra mat.
Yeah.
So we'll have 4 most likely for most of our tournaments, our individual tournaments. We've thought about 5, but sometimes you get into that where it's too quick then. So, we're going to be able to store our mats right down there on the gym floor for competition. So it's huge. And when all that's done, the weight room gets moved and we get our own wrestling space. So that'll be really
Yeah, I know you guys are in like the cafeteria of the NBC right now.
Yeah, so I've been in my 10th year. We bounced around. I've been in 5 different locations.
Yeah,
practice.
yeah. I remember when I was a kid, you guys were in that, like, not a lot of people who are watching won't probably know the layout of the high school necessarily, but at Montague High School, basically you walk into the front doors and you go straight and you go, basically it's like a big, huge S curve. It doesn't come back ever, which was always my biggest gripe about that school. But basically, if you walk down past the gym all the way down, there's this room with like a glass. I don't know what type of glass you call that.
Yeah, it's like a rounded glass room that used to be the old wood shop.
Yeah, and that's where you guys were at when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
And then from there, it moved to the cafeteria of the high school. And then now you guys are in.
Well, we went to the weight room for a year.
Yep.
And then now we're in the cafeteria, and we kind of share that space with the middle school a little bit. Like now that we're down to our regional qualifiers, we kind of go in the back hallway and let them have the space because they have the numbers to be in there. So that space in the back was exciting. That was kind of nice. We had some ropes in there. We put some pull-up bars in there, and then class numbers grew and they needed the space. So of course, education first. So we bounced around. And so we're excited to get some stabilization and have a room to call our own.
Yeah. I mean, that's it seems like something kind of small, but when you have somewhere that you can continually be every year and that's recognized for that is huge for a program. Like,
well, it's ownership.
Yeah.
That's huge, I think, for any sports program.
Yeah.
The space actually will be, it's about a mat and a half roughly by the time you get everything done. But when you add wall padding on a room, the space grows, because you don't have to worry about somebody falling.
At this moment, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Park Place Sports. Want to support your local athletics program? Look no further than Park Place Sports. As a leader in banner and sponsorship program for athletes, they provide top-notch services to help your team shine. Visit their Facebook page, Park Place Sports, LLC, and see how they can elevate your athletic program today. Park Place Sports, your partner in athletic excellence.
Yeah.
It'll be nice. We're excited for it, definitely. It's going to be growth, hopefully, for our program. We'll be back in the high school, so we can see kids that are, walking around in the winter not doing nothing, and we can be like, hey, you want to come give it a shot? I think that'll help as well.
Yeah. I mean, that gym and just in general is like, it's going to be phenomenal. I'm almost worried, too. It's so big that I'm like, during basketball games, are we going to fill that thing? Like, because it's huge. I mean, you go to Whitehall's gym across the pond or across the river, whatever you want to call it. And that gym is about a little bigger than the new one, maybe about the same size as Montague's new one. And it almost doesn't feel full even in the biggest games because there's just so much space. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. We've had discussions because we've talked about like, man, maybe we should just stay in our, old gym for duels because it's a little bit smaller, you're right there within the action. You look at Shelby's gym. I mean, Shelby's gym is huge.
That thing is huge. The funny part is it's super old.
Yeah.
But they built it when they were super successful. I mean, they were going to state finals and stuff like that. So they had the success to be able to and need to be able to fill. I mean, those gyms would used to be full.
Oh yeah, I
like-
mean, you're talking even back then. Their wrestling teams were very solid. I mean,
Yeah.
they've always been solid. But like being able, I remember the first time I went in there, I was reffing, and they had like 8 mats laid out on the floor. I'm like, holy cow, this gym's ginormous.
Yeah.
So you're right. Now that I think about it, you don't think about it being that old, but that's probably 20 plus years old at least.
Yeah, I remember I had not seen that gym with the bleachers down like back in until like last summer. That was the first time, and I've been in that gym hundreds of times. I've always either been there for a game or to watch some sort of scrimmage or scout or whatever. I've never seen that gym. Even we played one time open gym, and it was the bleachers were out for the game or tournament that weekend.
I think like they're still wooden too.
Yeah, they're all still wood, completely wooden, and it's weird because they're kind of a weird angle. They're like really long and back because they're covering a full court on each side.
Right.
So that gym is almost bigger than the VAC, the athletic center in Whitehall, just in pure size.
Yeah, I'd be curious the numbers, like the square footage, like how much floor space they have compared to the VAC. It's got to be close. Because it is huge. When those bleachers are back, you do walk around and go.
Yeah, I walked in there. I went to Coach Zulik invited me and my brother to come up there and play one night, and we drove up there and we got in there, and I'm like, I've never seen this. Like, this is so much space. Like, how would I ever how do you ever use this? Like, it's so much space, but I gotta imagine it's just so nice for sports because, like, in the winter there's a ton of sports going on.
Well, and
so
I think they're allowed. They do it too, where they drop their curtain, and theirs is set up different. So when they drop their curtain, they still have full courts.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I went up there a couple years ago for end of the season. We'll take our guys up there and with different schools and practice for the postseason. And they were having basketball practice, and they had each court was a different team practicing. So that's got to be nice.
Yeah.
Which ours not quite that size length. Being able to do that, but just looking at it, it's tremendous. We've walked through it a couple times now, and we went down and looked at the new weight room equipment.
I haven't seen it since they put the track in, so I'm kind of curious to see. I haven't seen it. That was before they did that was the last time I saw it, so I'm kind of curious to get in there.
Yeah, we walked in. I know like they were doing the track, putting that rubber down, so you couldn't really get in there. So we walked in probably 2 weeks ago or so and walked around, and it's amazing really when you look at the size of it and the space, and then you're starting to think like, wow, the capabilities that you're able to do now with these gyms, and they're both so close together. So
it'll be nice like having, hey, you can practice in this gym, and then we can have this as like game time or like day before pregame practice type situation where you're in that gym. It'll be so nice.
That's what we kind of like when we were down in that, we went back to that room for a year.
Yeah.
For practice. I forgot how we ended up in there. We ended up there for it was COVID maybe. So we were able to practice in that room. And then when we had meets, it was kind of nice because we'd stay in there and practice and warm up in there. And then when the meet started, we'd come down right away. So we'd just stay in our room and come down. So we're kind of looking at that being a nice possibility with our, going into the old weight room, being able to practice or warm up in there and then be able to come out and start the meet.
Yeah. So a question I had for you, talking about new gyms and something that's kind of a new trend, which I actually think is really cool, is the assembly duels. How is that?
Yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better environment this year with ours. And it wasn't planned. It was actually, we were supposed to go to Grant. Talking to Coach Schultz over there, we were supposed to go there, but they ended up having a half day of school.
Yeah.
And so he's like, but we'll come to you. I'm like, oh, well, this will work out perfect. We ended up having a couple meets canceled, so we're trying to make up the first duel. So they came to us on a Friday before break, and that was awesome. The gym full, the kids getting into it, and it couldn't have been a better
ending.
Yes, it played out like perfect.
Yeah.
Ava's losing her match, with an exhibition, and then she comes back and wins with a pin, and then all of a sudden you can just see the kids' faces light up in the crowd and everything.
Yeah.
And then we knew we'd struggle down low, and then at 138 we ended up, my kid ended up getting a pin, and all of a sudden it was like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, it was like I want to say it was like 5 pins in a row, maybe.
Yeah, they did. They hit us with 5 or 6 in a row. But the funny thing is, so everybody just thinks, oh, the pins. Well, the match before we put Toby Haycoop out, who's dual sport, and he's a freshman.
Yeah.
And he didn't get pinned.
Yeah.
And we knew, like, right then, we're like, okay, that's our break.
Yeah. I remember he came off and was like, had a bloody nose and was like, I'm like, this guy looks like he's been through war out here. No, and then at the end with Maverick getting that, did he end up pinning him?
Yeah, he ended up with a pin to win it. So it was exciting. I mean, the place went nuts. I mean, the students were right by the mat, and it was pretty cool.
I think the only thing that could make that better is by getting like a spotlight right in the middle.
So we've had discussions about that, and we went to one school a couple years ago. They did a spotlight duel, and we're like, well, how'd you do it? Well, all they did is ran an extension cord to the drape that comes down in the middle.
Yeah.
So we've been looking at that, and we're like, all right, we just.
Well, in the new gym, you'll have the you could just go right off the like balcony right there and just drop it down, like just go up off an outlet up there, run it up, and right there, and you'd have the new a new spotlight.
Yeah, it's just like you said, it's so big.
Yeah.
I think if we were going to do an assembly duel, I'd rather do it in the old gym again.
Really?
Yeah, because it worked out. The lights, we didn't realize, like we were playing with the lights beforehand, and we actually got the perimeter lights to go down, like with the.
Oh yeah. You might have more control in that gym to just shut them off.
Well, I'm here in the new gym. We got some pretty good control of the lights as well. So, but I just like the
little
small atmosphere.
You know what will be nice is I was thinking about this the other day actually in the new gym when they do so every year. For those who don't know, Montague does a homecoming assembly, which is like every school, every class of the entire district, and that's like 1,500 kids, something like that.
They're on the floor.
Usually, there's like 6 rows on the floor. Like it's packed in there, which is always fun because it's super packed. Right. But in that new gym, everybody's going to get a seat, so you don't have to sit on the floor if you're a middle schooler anymore.
That will be kind of cool. I remember like at Manistee for homecoming, we always did assemblies like that, and then we had like the competitions, and every year the competition was like you had to chant for your class. Like ours was, we did 00 because we graduated in 2000.
Yeah.
And then like the next class would go in succession. The loudest class would end up winning or whatever. So it'll be kind of neat in that new gym because they'll probably be able to like put everybody in rows like we were in Manistee and be able to like do some things like that with the kids and. Probably better for the teachers to be able to rein the kids in.
Yeah. I remember there was like literally like 6 rows on the bottom of just on each end of the court. And it was just like, and as a middle schooler, I remember just being down there kind of, this hurts my butt to sit here for 2 hours, hour and a half for this assembly.
That's our girls tournament. Our gym gets just packed for our girls tournament. And so it'll be really nice with that. And, our refs have been asking, us to get another mat to kind of take the time down. So, it's just a huge advantage for everything, And I think it's going to be excitement. That new weight room's great.
Let's take another moment to thank our sponsor, Shoreline Restoration and Construction. Did a storm recently hit your business, home, or other building? Then Shoreline Restoration and Construction can help. They are a leader in remodels, new construction, and much, much more. They also restore water-damaged buildings, flooded basement, and so much more.
Oh, it's outstanding. We're waiting on the dumbbells, I think, because they're getting the imprints on the MCAT logos on them. So those are still waiting. But, just having that space and brand new equipment, I think it builds energy back into the kids and gets them back, back into the swing of things again.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of success at Montague. You've been at wrestling coach for
10,
close to 10 years. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the most success or the most fun you've had during a season, or some of those memories.
It's probably doesn't have a lot to do with wrestling. It's probably more the things that happen off the mat, or jokes, or getting to know the kids and watching them grow. But I think we were talking about it the other day. Some of my most fun matches were actually matches we lost.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a couple years ago we were wrestling Hart in the districts and in the district finals, and we swung a couple matches our way, and we ended up losing still by like 20. But after the meet, just going to the locker room and talking to the kids and being like, that was fun. Just being that competitive right down to it was fun and exciting.
Yeah.
So those moments are probably the best. It's a little different now. Obviously, my kid's on the team, so I got some dad moments.
What's that like?
That's tough.
Yeah.
I think Craig Christensen put it well. I think last year when he wrote a nice article about it. But that's probably the most challenging job as a coach parent, because wrestling's there's so much to it. You got the nutrition, you got the extra workouts, everything, where coaching him in football, when I coached him in middle school, wasn't that big of a deal,
Yeah.
per se. But now it's like, okay, he gets up in the morning and he's like, well, what should I eat for breakfast? I'm like, well, you got to figure this stuff out, and then he gets mad at me. And,
Yeah.
So, I mean, we definitely started off rocky, but, reaching out to people like, Ed Felt coached his kids in wrestling. He's been a great resource and helped us both, bridge that gap, because I can tell him one thing and then, Ed can tell him another, and it means
Yeah.
more coming from somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a challenge. It's been rewarding and exciting. I mean, he's done fairly well for a freshman. A lot of people don't get the pressures that somebody like that, puts on
Yeah.
themselves, especially him, because he's very, wants to do well and succeed, and he's afraid that, if I don't do well, then Dad's not going to be proud.
Yeah.
Those types of things. So we've had a lot of communication about that stuff. So.
Yeah.
But there's been some fun moments where, you kind of get a nice little smile and grin, he, watching him, he was in Hesperia, or not Hesperia, it was a Hesperia duel a couple weeks ago. He was the last one up, and we were down by 4 or something, so he had to win the duel. But like my buddy told me, Jacob sang up at in Ludington there, he said he remained calm the whole match. I thought back, I'm like, he did. Like, that's amazing, the maturity to be able to, in that situation, not take it as oh, I have to do this, or
Yeah.
the team's gonna be mad at me. So there's been cool moments like that, watch him grow. Everybody says you should start writing a book or start writing things down. And I was saying, oh, that's a good idea, because just watching the growth,
Yeah.
that has been amazing. But I mean, that's all our kids. It's awesome to think back and watch the kids grow. And maybe they don't reach their full potential or goals, but the process of learning the things along the way that they do and look back
Yeah.
and the lessons, I think that's far more valuable. They're gonna, Kris Abig, Jimmy Thoman, 2 great kids that are constantly giving back to others and helping another in the community. I mean, and that's huge. That's good to see. Braden Call, who moved in with me when I was a freshman. Now he's a permanent sub at the or what do they call it? I think it's a permanent sub, or however that works. Like, goes there every day and just gets assigned to a different class. So I mean, he's their full-time
Yeah.
sub, I guess, and then helps us coach. That's huge. So it's just great. I mean, in our program, watching the people come back and give back. Our assistants are great. Our youth program's good. Kris Abig, what a community stand-up guy he is. I mean, man, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he
Yeah.
sleeps, and now he's owning the pizza place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. So here's a question for you. And wrestling is one of those sports that I think it's more prominent than anything. Actually, Dan Hunt, who I had on yesterday, talked a little bit about this mental toughness. How important is mental toughness in wrestling, and how have you seen that change through the years?
Oh, I wish I had the resources for the mental training that we're able to provide for these kids nowadays. And I don't think it's just wrestling. Wrestling is that sport where you may get beat by somebody that maybe you shouldn't have. I think back to a match. Jimmy Thoman was going for his 100th win, and it took him 5 times to get it, because that's all he could think about. I have to win this match to get my 100. Well, and he lost to a couple kids he shouldn't have lost to. So the mental side of things is huge. And, we try to spend, we call it Wisdom Wednesday. We meet about an hour and a half before practice, and we kind of follow the wrestling mindset program. And it's similar to everything, grit training, and everybody has their little spin on it. And it's all the same. It's not wrestling mindset. It's sports mindset. And that's what we try to portray it as to the kids. But I think over the years, it's definitely needed more. The kids got to learn how to get through obstacles and learn how to retrain their brain and think differently. Like I said, wrestling, if I'm wrestling during the year and I lose to somebody I shouldn't, now all of a sudden there's self-doubt.
Yeah.
So you start questioning your
Yeah.
abilities and am I good enough? Should I be here? Should I be in those finals? Or I'm a freshman and I shouldn't be at this tournament, and those types of things. So you got to change those thoughts to positive thoughts, and you earned your spot to be here. And giving them the tools to do that, I think, is huge for all the sports. And like I said, not just wrestling. Wrestling is tough because you have the diet, the nutrition, the things that go along with it. So trying to give them those tools is huge. Dan Hunt does a great job. I follow a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
He does really good. There's a lot of resources out there. We've been doing
Quick break from the action to thank our sponsor. Meraki Performance is a leader in performance coaching. Whether you're looking to motivate your business or your athletic team, Meraki Performance can help. Check them out at merakiperform.com.
Podcasts. It's like a minute every day. It's a mindset podcast. We do it before practice every day and kind of have a short discussion on it.
Yeah.
Just trying to get the kids to think differently, you know. And I think that helps, you know, because wrestling is that sport where you can beat anybody on any given day.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. A guy like Ira Jenkins, how do you, outside of, you know, pure athletic ability, how do you get to be that level? Like, what does it look like? What does it take to be that level?
Time, effort. I mean, it really, that's what's cool about wrestling. The more time and effort, you can speed up the process. You know, the more mat time you get, the more training you do, you can move that along. You know, somebody like him with the time and effort he's had to put in to get to the level he's at is just amazing when you really think back to it. And, you know, he was multifaceted, you know, musically talented, academically. So, you know, his day had to be just jam-packed full of different aspects of training. But a lot of it is now, too, you know, kids got to learn to maybe they got to get up earlier. You know, maybe they got to go to the weight room in the morning before practice and do those extra things. And it's tough. And it's tough on parents, too. So, you know, his dad supported him in that and really helped him. I know he did a lot of training in the summer. So, but it's with anything, the more effort and time you put into something, the better you're going to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the level he's at is just extraordinary. I mean, and, you know, like Gavin Craner, you know, it's just outstanding watching some of those guys compete. You're like, wow.
Yeah.
So time and effort is what it comes down to. If you want something bad enough, you're going to sacrifice something else, and you're going to put the time in for it. I mean, it's kind of what we tell our kids, you know. I always think that it's like a YouTube video or something. The guy starts off, you know, you got to want it more than you want to breathe. Type video.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It's out there. Like, I've listened to it a couple times or seen it, played it for the kids. You know, it's just, you know, what am I going to do? Do I want to go sit on Xbox, or do I want to go to the weight room? Do I want to go to this extra one-on-one training, or, you know, training down at another, you know, club outside of practice, or do I want to sit at home and sit in my bum? I mean, it's about choices.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. So what's kind of next for Montague Wrestling?
We got to continue to grow. I think there's a lot of kids, and I don't even want to say wrestling, I think athletics as a whole. We got a lot of athletes walking the hallways that could help each team out. And it's really trying to ingrain that into all the athletes at Montague, per se, is get them to know that I don't have to be a starter to help the team.
Yeah, you know that line right there is one of the most important things that I think a lot of kids miss. Yes. Right? It's funny because, and I say this probably once an episode, but the reason this podcast is named the Benchwarmers Perspective is because I didn't play in high school. Not that I wasn't good enough, but my role on the team I found was that being the hype guy, being the guy who's gonna, like, you're on the bench calling out screens in a basketball game, right? Like, that stuff is almost just as important as, you know, playing and being on the court. Now, would I have loved to play? Yes. Don't get me wrong. Like, I would live and die for that, right? But that just wasn't how it panned out, right? So just being on the bench and being that guy, that was the role. And I think a lot of kids now don't realize that.
No, I think that's huge, and it's important for all athletes at any school, per se. You know, you don't have to be the starter to be benefit to your team.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like wrestling, I talk about it all the time. You know, we run our numbers roughly between 17 and 25-ish for boys any given year. I'd love it to be about 30. But like I tell the kids, like, you get these guys that settle in, and like throughout the year, you're going to have somebody sick, hurt, injured, and somebody else has got to step in. And, you know, that's what makes these other teams successful, when you're able to have somebody else step in that's just as competitive, and maybe they only step in for a tournament or two, but your team keeps rolling and moving forward.
Yeah.
Along with in the room, you know. And I phrase it, I think I talked to the volleyball team one day, and I asked how many were starters, you know, and I think there's, 6 starters on a volleyball team?
Yeah. 6 or 7, yeah. I don't know.
Something like that. And I said, well, what if you 6 didn't have these other, I think there was 6 more in the room, more in the room pushing you or helping you, would you be successful? And they're kind of like, no. Like, so don't just commit all out to volleyball. Commit to basketball, commit to track, because they need you even if you're not a starter there.
Yeah.
Just like you need your teammates. And I think we're getting back to that, but I think it really needs to be pushed, and those kids need to know they're of value, because every one of them are. Football team, only 11 starters start.
Yeah.
But man, if you could run 11 on offense, 11 on defense, and they're all just as good, your football team becomes that much better.
Yeah, I think that's actually what made the 2022 team. So, I can't think of the name or the word. I don't know.
Well-rounded?
Yeah, well-rounded. That's kind of what I was looking for. That's what made them so good, is that they were able to throw for basically everything but the skill positions, if I'm not mistaken, on defense, like a linebacker. And
Yeah, they were give relief and breaks
Yeah.
and like start somebody else and then
Yeah.
rotate in a different position.
yeah, that's what made them really good, is that now, and the funny thing is the year in I think it was 18, when that was the problem that they had in the state finals, is Jackson Lumen Christie just had so many guys that we got tired, right?
Yeah, I remember being at that game
Yeah.
watching, going, man, they were subbing their special teams in, they were subbing everybody in. Like Jackson Lumen Christie was running 6 to 7 guys on the field
Yeah.
every change of a possession, or
Yeah, it was that. It's funny that you say that, though. That like that's such a big, like, even if you're not on the necessarily even on the team, like if you're not playing, being the guy up there recording the film, or that's all critical portions of any sport, right? And I think we, as a society, need to get back to that. I feel like we've had a little bit of a loss of that.
Well, and if you looked at most teams that are successful right now, you can use Whitehall, who's been very successful the last couple of years, but they're successful in all their sports right now.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's guys playing multiple sports, even if they're not a starter. I think of, like, I heard Cody Manzo was playing football this year, or maybe it was last year, and I'm like, well, he's a stud on the wrestling mat, but he's playing football to help his team out.
Yeah.
Same thing and vice versa, get those football players back in wrestling.
Yeah.
Or basketball or whatnot. So I think when you really look at the statistics, look back at Montague back in 2009 when they won it was first state title, right? Yeah. Those kids most of them were 3-sport athletes.
Yeah.
And they were successful in their other sports as well. They didn't just commit to like one thing. They were successful in all their sports. Think back to years before that. I remember I was looking at our trophy case, and I think I was snapping pictures of like years that I think basketball won districts, wrestling won districts, football made a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And like you look, and what is the common theme of all those sports teams? There's kids playing multiple sports.
Yeah.
They're helping each other. They're not focused on.
It's funny that you say that, because like when we went to the state finals for cross country, when I was a sophomore, that's kind of the whole team was just a hodgepodge of guys who might have been playing 2 sports that season.
Yeah.
You had Kale, you had Owen Fairchild. I was a 3-sport athlete. You had Clay Jansek, and like you had multiple guys who were 3-sport athletes throughout the entire season, and our team was just basically 6 or 7 athletes who just went out and competed because that's what they like to do, right?
Yeah, they may not be like the superstar.
Yeah.
But they're all contributing to their team.
Yeah, I remember in the state finals meet, actually, and Adam was our fastest runner, so he was always ahead. But in the state finals meet, we basically got around that first bend at the MIS and out the gate for the track, and right after that, the bottom 6 guys. So Adam's up ahead, bottom 6 guys, 5 guys maybe. We're all in a line running the same pace. Clay had gone like Mach 12 out of the gates because he wanted to lead the race for a portion. And then he had slowed down, so we all were right there. And then for like a half mile, we all ran literally like a wall across the whole thing.
Yeah, it makes it hard. Nobody can pass. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, but it was just funny because like normally we were all spread out, and at that point we were just a team all running together, except for Adam, who was like 10 guys ahead.
Yeah, it's probably a great feeling when you're doing that, and then you're looking around, and you're like, you kind of have that memory of this is what it's about.
Yeah. And it was snowing, and I was like, get me out of here. But yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on. I think this was a great conversation. Excited to get this one posted. because it was a ton of fun talking with you. Excited to see what you guys do going into regionals.
This weekend, we got the boys on Saturday and the girls on Sunday.
Yep.
So.
Excited to see what you guys do. Excited to see how you guys perform. And good luck this Saturday. And thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thanks.